Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Lord Bhakti Putrani Nirvishesha Sindhavati Om Agyanad Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya 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 Rayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamutiraya Naishtapreshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamasloke Bhaktim Bhavati Nastiki. So today we are studying Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 3, Status Quo, Chapter 9, Brahma's Prayers for Creative Energy. We're on text 21. Yan Navi Padma Bhavanat Aham Asham Idya Yanavi Padma Bhavanat Aham Asam Idya Lokya Trayopa Karano Yad Anugrahina Loka Trayopa Karano Yad Anugrahina or 3 times yet.
Do it one more time.
One more time. Yana Vipadma Bhavanara Hamasam Idya.
Yana Vipadma Bhavanara Hamasam Idya.
Loka Trayopakarano Yadanugrahena.
Loka Trayopakarano Yadanugrahena.
Tasmai Namasta Udarasta Bhavaya Yoga.
Tasmai Namasta Udarasta Bhavaya Yoga.
Nidravasana Viksanilake Sanaya.
Nidravasana Viksanilake Sanaya.
Yannavi Padma Bhavanara Hamasyam Asamidya.
Yana Vipadma Bhavanara Hasamidya.
Loka Trayopakarano Yadanugrahena.
Loka Trayopakarano Yadanugrahena.
Tasmai Namasta Udarasta Bhavaya Yoga.
Tasmai Namasta Udarasta Bhavaya Yoga.
Nidravasana Vikasannalinekshanaaya.
Nidravasana Viksannalikshaya.
Yana Vipadma Bhavanat Aham Asam Idya.
Yana Vipadma Bhavanara Hamasamidya.
Loka Trayopakarano Yad Anugrahena.
Loka Trayopakarano Yadanugrahena.
Tasmai Namasta Udarasta Bhavaya Yoga.
Tasmai Namasta Udarasta Bhavaya Yoga.
Nidravasana Vikasanilikshenaya.
Nidravasana Vikasannalikshanaya.
Yana Vipadma Bhavanara Hamasamidya.
Yana Vipadma Bhavanara Hamasamidya.
Loka Trayopakarano Yadanugrahena.
Loka Trayopakarano Yadanugrahena.
Tasmai Namasta Udarasta Bhavaya Yoga.
Tasmai Namasta Udarasta Bhavaya Yoga.
Nidravasana Vikasanalinekshanaaya.
Nidravasana Vikasannalikshanaya. Yana Vipadma Bhavanara Hamasamidya. Loka Trayopakarano Yadanugrahena. Tasmai Namasta Udarasta Bhavaya Yoga. Nidravasana Vikasannalikshanaya. Yat, Whose, Nabhi, Navel, Padma, Lotus, Bhavanat, from the house of Aham, I, Asam, became manifested, Idya, O worshipful one, Lokatraya, the 3 worlds, Upakarana, helping in the creation of Yat, whose, Anugrahena, by the mercy, Tasmai, unto him, Namaha, my obeisances, day, unto you, Udarasta, situated within the abdomen, Bhavaya, having the universe, Yoga Nidra Vasana. After the end of that transcendental sleep, Nikchasad, blossoming, Nalina Ikshanaya, unto him whose opening eyes are like lotuses. Srila Prabhupada's translation. O object of my worship, I am born from the house of your lotus navel for the purpose of creating the universe by your mercy. All these planets of the universe were stationed within your transcendental abdomen while you were enjoying sleep. Now your sleep having ended, your eyes are open like blossoming lotuses in the morning. Please repeat. O object of my worship, I am born from the house of your lotus navel for the purpose of creating the universe by your mercy. All these planets of the universe were stationed within your transcendental abdomen while you were enjoying sleep. Now your sleep having ended, your eyes are open like blossoming lotuses in the morning. Brahma is teaching us the beginning of Archana, regulations from morning 4 o'clock to night 10 o'clock. Early in the morning, the devotee has to rise from his bed and pray to the Lord. And there are other regulative principles for offering Mangala Arti early in the morning. Foolish non-devotees, not understanding the importance of Archana, criticize the regulative principles, but they have no eyes to see that the Lord also sleeps by his own will. The impersonal conception of the Supreme is so detrimental to the path of devotional service that it is very difficult to associate with the stubborn non-devotees who always think in terms of material conceptions. Impersonalists always think backwards. They think that because there is form in matter, spirit should be formless. Because in matter there is sleep, in spirit there cannot be sleep. And because the sleeping of the deity is accepted in Archana worship, the Archana is Maya. All these thoughts are basically material. To think either positively or negatively is still thinking materially. Knowledge accepted from the superior source of the Vedas is standard. Here in these verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam, we find that Archana is recommended. Before Brahma took up the task of creation, he found the Lord sleeping on the serpent bed in the waters, in the waves of the water of the devastation. Therefore, sleeping exists in the internal potency of the Lord, and this is not denied by pure devotees of the Lord like Brahma and his disciplic succession. It is clearly said here that the Lord slept very happily within the violent waves of the water, manifesting thereby that he is able to do anything and everything by his transcendental will and not be hampered by any circumstance. The Mayavadi cannot think beyond this material experience, and thus he denies the Lord's ability to sleep within the water. His mistake is that he compares the Lord to himself, and that comparison is also a material thought. The whole philosophy of the Mayavadi school, based on not this, not that, 1818, is basically material. Such thought cannot give one the chance to know the Supreme Personality of Godhead as he is. Om Ganati Vrandasya Jananjana Salakaya Chaksumilitanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadanmayam Daranti Svapadanti Tam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uttavarakamlam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitantam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadvanutam Parishna Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakha Vitam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagapate Gopisa Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vindavanishvari Vishabhanusade Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanshakapa Dhruvyascha Kripa Sindhu Vevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, Lord Brahma, through his prayers, showing us how Krishna makes himself available to us in the Archan Vigraha form. And just like we relate to each other, we talk to each other, we give instruction or take instruction from each other, we playfully communicate with each other. So the pure devotee, Srila Prabhupada, he communicates with Krishna like this. And he communicates with him through his Archa Vigraha, his deity form. When he sees Krishna on the altar, he doesn't see paint, wood, stone. He sees Krishna's unlimited, ever-increasing beauty. He sees his knowledge. He sees his strength and his renunciation, his fame and his opulence. There's no secret formula for this ability. It's simply very, very strong sadhana and very, very strong dedication to the instruction of the spiritual master. When we follow the instruction of our spiritual master, we're following the instruction of the previous spiritual master and the one before that, and on up to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna. And so when we look at the deities, we may see beautiful flowers, we'll see beautiful dresses, opulent crowns. But we have to understand beyond that this is actually Krishna. When the first devotee sees Krishna, they see God. In Vaisaya, we would have programs and we invite different sannyasis. And one of our favorite guests is Giriraj Maharaj. And when he would come, it would always be a very blissful time. But when Giriraj comes, it's kind of like Durvasa Muni in that he brings a great retinue of devotees with him. I mean, there's his cook, and then the cook has a husband and a child, and then there are his servant, and then there are the devotees that are visiting him at the time. So, I mean, we could have up to 15 extra people. We loved him though so much. We do still to this day. But we were so fortunate. We had on the street, it was like a shaped like a J or maybe even an upside down R. We had 5 different homes that devotees were living in, so we could accommodate quite a few people, and we didn't mind the sacrifice for a couple of days. And after one particularly ecstatic visit from Giriraj Maharaj, he was about to leave, we all lined up, and we asked him, please don't leave. We really love your association so much. So he went in front of the deities, and he paid his obeisances, and he stood there praying for a while, and then he came back and said, Krishna wants me to stay. I had a job. There were messes to clean up. It was like, oh, what did we do? What did we wish for? So he stayed for another day, but it was still a great blessing, even though we had to juggle around it. And then Srila Prabhupada with Dwarkadish. One morning, Srila Prabhupada put us all in ecstasy for 24 hours only. He told us that he was going to make Los Angeles his home, and that he was going to retire from traveling and preaching. He said that he just wanted to stay there and do his translation work, and he was delegating all the management to the movement to the different senior devotees, sannyasis, and GBC men. We were in ecstasy, honestly. We were walking on clouds for 24 hours. Then the next morning we hear Srila Prabhupada's packing to go to India. And so Gargamuni asked Srila Prabhupada, what changed your mind? And he said, I had an argument with Dwarkadish. Whoa, Prabhupada had an argument with God? Who else could have an argument with God, right? But this gives us insight into how an argument with God goes. Dwarkadish told Srila Prabhupada, I want you to go to India and open the temple. And Prabhupada told him, he says, I've already completed the mission of my Guru Maharaj. I have opened up the West to Krishna consciousness. And I want to finish translating my books. And Dwarkadish told Prabhupada, he said, if you go and open a temple in India, I'll make it more beautiful than the temple here. Which was, LA was it still is the most beautiful temple in America. And so Prabhupada agreed, and he went. And he not only opened one beautiful temple, he opened 3. And there's more than that by this time now. But Prabhupada opened Mayapur and Juhu and Vrindavan. And one day, while sitting in the courtyard of Vrindavan, Srila Prabhupada turned to Gargamuni and he said, so this is a beautiful temple, huh? You know, even someone doesn't have to be on such an elevated platform to see the beauty and majesty of the Supreme Lord in his Archa-Vigraha form. I wish the doors were open. And his Archa-Vigraha form. Because there was this devotee, her mother became a great advocate for devotees. Because, you know, we all join not really understanding how to properly leave home. And so our parents, many of our parents were very upset about us becoming devotees. And this one mother named Liz Fortesh, she started a program called Friends of Krishna. And she would have dinners for the parents, and she would send them little newsletters telling them that your children are doing so nicely. They're not breaking, they're following the 4 regular principles, they're doing the work of God. She'd write these really sweet letters to our parents and send them out. And once she brought her parents to the temple, and she got them a nice chair to sit in. They were about 80 years old, you know, they were very old. And when the doors opened, her father stood up and paid obeisances. And later, Liz asked her father, why did you pay obeisances, Papa? And he said, because I saw God. So even though he had no experience, he understood, yes, this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then, and even sometimes in the gross, impersonalists, like the person who opened the Prem Mandir, down the temple from down the road from Krishna Balaram, is this very ornate, huge complex with a beautiful temple, but it's built by this impersonalist who claim to be an incarnation of Lord Chaitanya. It's Prem Mandir. They do have deities there, but you can see that deities are not particularly cared for with love and devotion. But he told his followers, if you want to see God, go to Iskcon and see Radha Shama Sundar. So even it's impersonalist, he knew this. So, and we saw Srila Prabhupada communicate with Krishna on so many personal levels. When he was in the later days that he was here, and he was very, very ill, he needed to drink large quantities of water to flush his kidneys. And at one point, Srila Prabhupada started to refuse water, and the devotees became alarmed. And they asked him why, and he said, I'm tired of living in this body. And of course the devotees became quite morose and sad that Prabhupada has chosen to leave his body, because he told us previously how his father left his body by, he stopped drinking, and within a week he had left his body. Srila Prabhupada said the choice is not in my hands, it's in Krishna's hands. And so the next morning, Srila Prabhupada asked for water. And the devotees were all amazed. How is it, Srila Prabhupada, you're now asking for water? And Prabhupada said, I was speaking to Krishna. And he said, the matter was in my hands. So when Srila Prabhupada looks at the deity, he sees the Supreme Lord in all his opulences. And once when Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda were visiting Gauridas Pandit, Gauridas Pandit was so enlivened by their presence, he begged them not to go anywhere, just to stay in his home forever. And Lord Chaitanya said, but I have to go out and spread the Sankirtan movement. I can't do it from your home. And Gauridas Pandit became so morose, and he just begged and begged and prayed to the Lord. So the Lord said, do you have faith in my instructions? And Gauridas Pandit said, yes, Mahaprabhu, I do. Anything you say, I understand, is the truth, the absolute truth. He says, then call a carpenter and bring some wood. And they had the carpenter immediately carve deities of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. Perfect resemblances. And so then Lord Chaitanya started to leave again. And Gauridas Pandit grabbed onto his lotus feet, please don't go, please don't go. And so Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda turned around and stood there, and the deities started to walk off. And Gauridas Pandit ran after the deities, no, don't leave, don't leave. So they came back. And then Lord Chaitanya explained to him, we are non-different. There's no difference. So Gauridas Pandit prepared a huge feast, and he sat Lord Chaitanya down, he sat Lord Nityananda down and put these big banana leaves in front of them, put some very first-class rice, 30 vegetable preparations. He offered fried foods and sweets, and Lord Chaitanya said, where are their plates? So Gauridas Pandit brought 2 more banana leaves, and Lord Chaitanya beckoned for the deities of Gaur-Nitai to come and sit down with them. And they all took this feast. And then when it was finished, Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda got up and left to spread the Sankirtan movement. So it is only our mundane vision that is seen stone or wood or paint. And we should not work so hard to see Krishna, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta explained, but we should work hard to be seen by Krishna. Lord Brahma explains, we can only see Krishna if our eyes are anointed with the love of Godhead. Premanjana Charita Bhakti Vilachena Santa Sadaira Hridayeshu Vilokayanti Yam Sundarsam Masundaram Chintaguna Sarupam Govindamari Purusham Ramaham Bhajami. So saintly persons whose eyes of devotion are smeared with the salve of prema always behold Shri Krishna within their hearts as Shyamasundar, the embodiment of inconceivable qualities. I worship that original personality, Govinda. So if our eyes are anointed with the salve of unconditional love, the same proportion will be our heart's realization of Krishna. Consequently, the depth of one's realization of Shri Krishna depends on how much one's sadhana is infused with bhakti. So the pure devotee sees Krishna everywhere. He sees Krishna in his full glory, in all his opulences that are ever expanding. And this even bewilders Krishna. You know, in Dwarka, There are many, many beautiful palaces, 16,108 minimum, one for each of Krishna's wives. But there also must have been palaces for Balaram's and his wives. And also Vasudeva had 17 wives. And also Ugrasena, so there are many palaces, but in Krishna's palaces, they were particularly beautiful. And they're described very nicely in the Krishna book, that they have gems and jewels embedded in the walls and the pillars and the floors. And once when Krishna was walking by one particularly highly polished pillar, and he saw his reflection, he said, "Who is that personality that is so beautiful and his beauty is expanding?" It was Krishna was seeing himself, and he became bewildered. And that that Krishna, in his form as Vasudeva, because when Krishna leaves, Krishna never leaves Vrindavan. But when Krishna expands himself into the form of Vasudeva and he goes to Mathura, once Vasudeva was lamenting about how, it was more than lamenting, it was a bit of envy, a bit of transcendental envy of God envying himself, about how Shyamasundar in Vrindavan was more beautiful than him. So this is the understanding that Krishnadas Kaviraj gave us in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. But impersonalists can not understand these things because they are so frustrated by their material relationships. And as Prabhupada said, they're seeing things backwards. So they're identifying whatever. Take a moment to gaze on their beautiful form. So impersonalists cannot understand this. And actually it was so nice when we were reading yesterday in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. There were two verses that just hit this like a hammer on the head of a nail. It was so perfect. Saksapajandra sutta ita nahiana yeva ane kare tare patimahi najana. Without a doubt, he is directly the son of the king of Raj. Only a fool considers him a statue. Seyaparade tare nahipa nishtara gorannarakete pare hipalibara. For that offense he cannot be liberated. Rather, he will fall into a terrible, hellish condition. What more should I say? In his Bhakti Sandarbha, Jiva Goswami has stated that those who are actually very serious about devotional service do not differentiate between the form of the Lord made of clay, metal, stone, or wood, and the original form of the Lord. In the material world, a person and his photograph, picture, or statue are different. But the statue of the Lord Krishna and Krishna himself, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, are non-different because the Lord is absolute. What we call stone, wood, and metal are energies of the Supreme Lord, and energies are never separate from the energetic. As we have several times explained, no one can separate the sunshine energy from the energetic sun. Therefore, material energy may appear separate from the Lord, but transcendentally, it is not different from the Lord. The Lord can appear anywhere and everywhere because his diverse energies are distributed everywhere like sunshine. We should therefore understand whatever we see to be the energy of the Supreme Lord and should not differentiate between the Lord and his archa form made from clay, metal, wood, or paint. Even if one has not developed this consciousness, one should accept it theoretically from the instructions of the spiritual master and should worship the Archamurti, or form of the Lord in the temple, as non-different from the Lord. So these poor impersonalists are so unfortunate. They cannot understand the Lord. because they are not taking their information about the Lord from the proper source. Now I will end here. If there's any additions, questions, answers. Yes, Prabhu.
I was really appreciating your class in the past time with Gauridas Pandit, just this realization of the deity as actually Krishna. And it reminded me of that famous verse in Padma Purana, Archya Vishnu Shivadir, Guru Shu Naramatir, Vaishnava Jativatir, that Yasyava Narakisa, the one who has hellish consciousness, sees Archya Vishnu, the Archamurti of Vishnu or Krishna, as Shiladir, as a rock, an ordinary stone. Or Guru Shu Naramatir, the spiritual master, is an ordinary man. His hellish intelligence is madness. So you gave so many nice examples of that. I was really appreciating that.
I appreciate that verse. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah. And then, if I could share one other.
Yes, please.
Because I gave class in the last chapter, it reminded me of this, because in the last chapter, there was a verse I gave on that said, Nidraya milita drin nyamileya, that he's sleeping, but his eyes aren't completely closed. They're kind of, he's not really sleeping. And then in this chapter, Brahma had two verses. He started in the 5th verse, he mentioned the aroma of the Lord's lotus feet. A few verses later mentioned the Lord's lotus feet again. And finally, in the last chapter, we never got to see the Lord's eyes open. It just started explaining how Brahma was born. But in this chapter with Brahma's prayers, he finally reaches this point where the Lord's eyes open. And it, and it says, Nidravasana, that Yoga Nidra has ended, and Vikasan Nalinekshanaya, that his blossoming eyes have opened. Vikasan means blossoming, and Nalita is that lotus, and Ikshanaya, his eyes. And it reminded me of the opening verse of Mukunda Muktavali by Rupa Goswami. It's in Stavamala. And those same Vikasita Nalina, this blossoming lotus, but instead of eyes, it's Asyam. His face is like a blossoming lotus. So I'm just going to share this one verse and I'll be quiet. But it's so nice. It's Dravida Prabhu taught me from Mukunda Muktavali. Navajaladhara Varnam Champukod Bhasi Karnam Vikasita Nalinasim Vispuran Mandahasyam Kanakaruchidukulam Charu Bharhava Chulam Kimapi Nikila Saram Nami Gopi Kumara. So I'm offering obeisances to Gopi Kumara, the beautiful son of Yashoda Gopi, Nami Gopi Kumara, who's the best of all people, Nikila Saram. And he has a blossoming lotus face. Now, Vikasita Nalinasyam and Charu Bharhava Chulam, he's got a beautiful peacock feather, and he's wearing Kanaka Ruchidukulam, golden garments, and he's Navajaladharavarnam, he's the color of a new monsoon cloud. Vispuram Mandahasyam, and he's got a charming smile. So it's this beautiful description of Mother Yashoda's son, and we're seeing this glimpse of Vishnu as having these similar qualities, Vikasam Nalinekshanaya. And so it's just so sweet to see the same exact words used for the supreme absolute form of Mother Yashoda's son and this form of Vishnu that Brahma is seeing. And it just putting it all together, and then the class you were giving about the Archamurti being non-different, it all just sort of stacked up on me really fast.
What started me laughing when I read this verse was that how can the impersonalists, when we wake up, my eyes are not blossoming lotuses by any means. How can the impersonalists read this and not realize what wonderful being the Supreme Personality of Godhead is? Thank you. Oh, Maharaj.
Just responding to you mentioning how excited you were when you read this verse, I just want to share. Can I share?
Oh, please, but share loudly
Okay.
for the deaf.
So last week when Nagapatni was bugging me about how many verses would be covered by Monday, all of a sudden I got a text that said, would you like to do 3 verses? I really like 21.
He's telling on me.
How could I
How
not
could
say
you
go for it?
resist?